Wonderful to see you. Okay, we got it. We're recording, just so you know. So it's wonderful to see you all, to see all these faces, and people are popping in and coming in right now. And I am thrilled to be here. I'm honored to be the new executive director at the North Carolina Outward Bound School. I've had a wonderful opportunity to meet some of you, not all of you, and I've certainly emailed with a lot of people over the course of the past 6 to 8 weeks. And this warm welcome has been tremendous. And one thing I think we all know is that Outward Bound truly is about the people. My journey with Outward Bound started in 1993 with the Pacific Crest Outward Bound School. And I think a few of you on this call have heard my story, so please humor me because I'm going to tell it again in a very short nutshell. But I started with Pacific Crest Outward Bound School in 1993, and I was hired by Perry Norris, who might be on this call for any of you who know the Pear Dog. And I worked all through the 90s for the Pacific Crest Outward Bound School in admissions as the medical screener, as the director of admissions, and also as an instructor. And I instructed in Oregon, Washington, and California, specifically for this Pacific Crest Outward Bound School. And then my journey took me outside of Outward Bound for about 20 years. I worked as a consultant at a college foundation, and then I got into conservation, and I worked in the water rights business in the West for about 15 years, basically brokering water for a conservation organization between tribes, 5 cities, and 6 to 7 irrigation districts. So very political work and very interesting work where I learned a lot. And I moved then to Hong Kong, where I've been living for the past 3.5 years at Outward Bound Hong Kong, there at the Outward Bound Center in Hong Kong. My husband is currently the director of operations for Outward Bound Hong Kong. I met him through Outward Bound, and he's been with Outward Bound for about 27 years. And so suffice it to say, Outward Bound is in my blood. It is in my DNA. Our son has been raised on and off throughout the system at a number of different base camps. And I'm just thrilled to continue on my journey with Outward Bound. I'm from the South. I grew up in South Carolina, on the coast of South Carolina, Pawleys Island, Georgetown, South Carolina, that area. I went to college in Virginia, and then I moved west and lived out west for about 30 years or so. So this is truly a homecoming, back to the South and back to Outward Bound. So really, really delighted to be here. I am going to give you a very short update about what's going on here right now at this point in time in the school's history. And as you all know, we've been navigating unprecedented times, as everyone throughout the world has. And so more than now, more than ever, our mission is needed. And we're quite prepared for it, primarily, just based on the 4 pillars of Outward Bound and what we stand for, specifically to pull ourselves up and to figure out how to navigate this unprecedented time. So I'm going to use the analogy of a river. And if you think about pulling out your river map and taking a look specifically where you're going and how many rapids you've got to navigate along your way. And some of those are class 2, maybe some class 3s, maybe there's a 4, and a lot of flat water along the way. And thinking about where do you need to eddy out? Where do you need to actually pull over and get out and scout and figure out your line through the rapid? Well, we've been doing a lot of that here over the course of the past 8 weeks since I arrived. And I don't want to say there's a lot of navel gazing going on, but there has been a bit of that as we've taken the opportunity to lean in to this pause that COVID-19 has been affording us. And so I'm going to talk about it with the 3 Ps. And again, apologies to those of you who were at the Charlotte Advisory Board meeting this past week and heard me talk about the 3 Ps. So since I've arrived, I've really been focusing on people, priorities, and programs. So the first thing is just getting to know the people. Who is involved with the North Carolina Outward Bound School? And people have been coming out of the woodwork to be able to help me along my journey of really understanding this culture. I've spent a lot of time talking to board members, talking to as many staff as possible, going to Table Rock, getting out. I spent time in Charlotte with the Charlotte Advisory Board last week. I'm heading to South Florida at the end of this week to get to know the South Florida Advisory Board. And then we're going over to Everglades City and we'll spend some time there. When I come back up, I'm going to be spending some time in Atlanta. And so I'm just truly enjoying getting to know who is involved with the North Carolina Outward Bound School and just this opportunity to engage with all of you on this call and to see these faces and know how many people are invested in our community. And this community is tremendous. The depth and the breadth of passion and commitment to our mission is just astounding. So I again want to thank you all for being a part of this community. It's tremendous. And it's what has buoyed us as we've been navigating these class 3s and these class 4s to be able to know that we have people who are skilled and who can help us paddle through the rapids. And that's exactly what we've been seeing here at the North Carolina Outward Bound School, which is helping to inform our priorities moving forward. And so as we look at our priorities, as you all know, we did not have programming for a year. And we've slowly been bringing programs back into the field with our wilderness programming and then also our community programs. And as we've started to slowly integrate programming back online, we've been able to serve over 800 students. And out of those 800 students, about 220 of them have received scholarships. And again, everyone has helped make that happen. That said, we still have a lot of work to do as we move forward with our programming. And that is informing our priorities moving forward. So our demand is pretty much off the charts right now. People want to get outside. They want to have adventure in their lives. They want to have experiences, and they're knocking our doors down, whether that's with schools or contract courses, virtual programs, working in our professional development realm. And that's both in person as well as virtually. At Cedar Rock, at Table Rock, people just want to get out. What we're experiencing is a shortage of staff to be able to serve those programs. So demand is high, but our supply chain right now, as you're seeing throughout the world, is quite low. And we've been able to meet the need thus far, but we're really starting to stretch our resources. And so this is an area where we are truly taking a step back to figure out how to navigate this point in time in the school's history. Now, for many of you on this call, I know you've heard this before. Again, I told you at the beginning, I've been with Outward Bound since 1993, off and on in a lot of different capacities. And staffing has been an issue that has waxed and waned depending on the decade, depending on the time, but it's different this time. And I think the reason it is different is primarily because of the disruption of COVID and what we're seeing. And so we're starting to double down on how we build out a deep bench. And we think about those recruiting efforts, the business development that is taking place right now, to look at our pipeline and really understand where we are putting our resources, allocating time, and allocating dollars to basically help onboard instructors, as well as take care of the instructors that are already in our pipeline. And that goes to compensation. We enlisted an outside vendor to take a look at compensation across the board. And this is a commitment that the school has made, that we will be increasing compensation for instructors. We're in the process of doing that modeling right now, so we can roll that out over the course of the next 12 months. The compensation is not solely going to solve this issue. And so I believe we've got Lindsay on this call. There's Lindsay Ward, who is our staffing manager. Lindsay, I'm going to kick it over to you just for a second, if you would like to add anything to the compensation discussion.
Yeah, I think that compensation is going to be a big piece of us getting a lot of our retaining a lot of our staff and being able to bring on new quality staff. And I think that another big part of it is having support from a group of people like this. So I already, in my new role as the staffing manager, have called out to the people of NCOBS and our staff alumni and requested for folks to come back and work, or to start sending us people who might be appropriately qualified for to work in the Everglades this winter, and also to just become new assistant instructors and be the future of NCOBS. And I look to you all to maybe send some of those folks our way. And then also, hopefully, I'm working hard and crossing my fingers that we're going to be able to show those folks some increased compensation options too when they arrive.
Great. Thank you, Lindsay. I also want to speak to vaccinations. We have recently implemented 100% vaccination policy for all of our staff. And that was accepted well, and we're navigating that. All of the schools within the Outward Bound system right now, we are in conversation specifically about how we will move forward with open enrollment courses in 2022. So suffice it to say, I think that will be coming next, that we will be requiring vaccinations for our open enrollment courses. It becomes harder with our community programming, and primarily because of access to vaccinations for a number of the different populations that we are serving through our community programs. And so that is a conversation, again, that's happening at a national level. As many of you probably know, we have regular calls, all the executive directors within the system. And this is front and center right now. And so moving on to the next topic, I'm going to go right into our DEI work. And I want to tell you about a wonderful opportunity that I participated in this weekend, along with a few staff here that are on the call as well. And so if anybody else wants to speak to this, I would definitely welcome it. Deb, who is our program director, along with Sarah Goldman, who is our new community programs director. She was our virtual program director and is now accepted a new role here in COBS as our community programs director. And Styles Rader, who is the Table Rock program director, and myself attended, and Carrie was there too, Carrie Myers, our development advancement director, attended the inaugural conference here at Fort Rock called Outdoors for All. And it was invite only. There were about 100 people there. They wanted to keep it small, primarily because of COVID measures. And the whole focus of the 3 days was basically around DEI and serving a lot of diverse populations in the outdoors and how to build community around that. It was tremendous. I think we were all highly inspired. Carrie, I'm going to ask you to say a word or two, or Deb, I might ask you to say a word or two just about the conference specifically.
You can go ahead, Deb.
Oh, no, I was going to wait for you because you're shorter than I.
Oh, I am shorter than Deb. That is true. Okay, then I'll go first. So it was a great conference. So we really had an opportunity to connect with the Outdoor Network that has been very focused on bringing more diversity to the outdoors, as well as really infusing the staffing ranks of organizations to be able to have a reflective staff of who we're serving. And I think that was, it was really inspiring. It was incredibly insightful in terms of some of the work that we need to be doing, as well as not just programmatically and through our curriculum, but also with how we're recruiting our staff and how we're making our plans here moving forward to best be prepared to serve the students that are coming to us and meeting them where they are in their outdoor experience. And overall, I really enjoyed it. I was incredibly inspired by the end. Deb, do you have anything else to add?
Sure. I mean, Old Fort is just putting their best foot forward, because this is the town of Old Fort is really trying to bring change to the area. And so Old Fort's getting built up, and it was just fantastic that they were bringing all the different communities together. And they're just putting a massive amount of work into the infrastructure of Old Fort to make it accessible, to make it where people want to go. And they've just got a really great structure of seriously where other towns, other communities could grow from, taking a lead from the hard work that they've been doing. So again, it was a really great weekend, and it was right in our backyard.
That's great. Thank you for that update. Along those lines, with our BIPOC initiatives, we are now starting to move into our Hearst Fellowship work and recruiting a crew of diverse instructors that we hope to onboard next spring. And so there's a lot of work that is going on in that arena right now as we work internally. So more to come on that. We will be reporting out on that initiative more in the very near future. You heard me speak a little bit about the community-based programs, and Sarah Goldman, again, was leading the charge with our virtual programs as our virtual program director. And that has been a very successful pivot for us during COVID. We have had a number of different companies that we've successfully worked with for day programs. And we are now starting to bring people back into in-person programming with professional development programs as well. And as we look at our community umbrella, what is falling under that is we will have Charlotte, Atlanta, our community-based virtual programs, as well as the educators program and our professional development, aside from the virtual. And so a lot of work is going on to better understand what those different demographics need. And are we aligned with our programs and what is called for in the marketplace? And really being able to understand that specifically from the professional development realm and all of the great work that's going on in Charlotte. We have so many Unity students that we have been able to successfully serve in Charlotte. And that is by way of the Charlotte Advisory Board coming together with the full-time staff, that we also have the dedicated allocation of resources in Charlotte is going to serve as a pilot as we start to look towards Atlanta. Now, we also have a number of people in DC on the DC Advisory Board who have been quite successful in helping us work with scholarship students there as well. And so suffice it to say, across the board with community programming, this is an area where we historically have done a lot of great work, and we're looking to take it up a notch. But we want to be really clear on how we can best serve those areas. What is our impact? And being able to, again, not try to be all things to all people, but to get really clear on our mission delivery in those areas, strategically looking at those programs. And once we have a really good idea of what that looks like, then the funding comes alongside those programs. And so we're quite encouraged about the work we've done to date, but we're also really excited about the work that we're going to do, which is bringing up questions around how do you measure impact? How do we measure the effectiveness of our community programs? With wilderness programming, we've got a lot of tried and true methodologies in place to be able to measure the impact that we're having through our wilderness programs. And so as we move forward, this is an area within our community programming where we will be doubling down to really understand how to best serve our communities across the board under that umbrella. Advisory boards, I've already mentioned, we have so many people, many of whom are on this call, as well as our board members, as well as our community members. And the amount of energy, passion, commitment, and just investment, time, talent, resources. Thank you. Thank you for everything that you're doing to ensure that we weather the storm and we come out just whole on the other side. So resilience, sustainability, safety, all of those words go right in with our 3 Ps: people, priorities, and programs. So Sabrina, before I hand it back over to you, I have 2 acknowledgements. One is that there's a very special person on this call who's not going to like that I'm calling him out, who turned 97 last weekend. And he's amazing. So I would love if everybody could come off of mute and let's tell Rufus happy birthday.
Happy
birthday.
Rufus, you're wonderful. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to a fellow veteran.
We were all in Charlotte together last week, and we were able to sing Rufus happy birthday and enjoy cupcakes and birthday hats. And Rufus is amazing, as you all know, but it's just tremendous to be able to celebrate Rufus. It was tremendous to be able to celebrate it in person and to see him. So happy birthday, Rufus. There's another person that I'd like to acknowledge, and I don't want to start crying, but I might, that I received my first pin, my North Carolina Outward Bound pin from Ray Cooper. Thank you, Ray. I got this in the mail this week and it was so exciting, and I'm so glad to see you on this call, and I can't wait to see you in person and you can actually pin it on me. So thank you. Great to see you. And I really appreciate this pin. Thank you. You're on mute. Sabrina, can you unmute, Ray?
Yes, give me 1 second, Ray, and I can help you out here. Hold on. See if you can do it now. You might have gotten a little pop-up that says unmute. Oh, there we go. Yay! Hey, Ray.
Well, hello. Oh, B, I thought, I don't know if I know as well as anyone what a hard job the executive director is. I think I've been working with everyone except maybe the first 2. So I do know how hard it is to work with staff who all have their independent minds and board who have their independent minds. So my hat goes off to you. I'm glad you've been here 2 months.
Thanks, Ray. Thank you. And thank you for this pen and your sweet card.
You deserve it already. So.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. And with that, Sabrina, I'm going to turn it back over to you for questions to help facilitate that. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you all for being here. And so this is your time to ask me questions about what's going on at NCOBS. If you would like to put them in the chat, if you don't want to come on video, I'll be monitoring those. Or we can also use the raise hand feature. So if you've been on Zoom recently, they've moved it. You actually click on the reactions button down at the bottom. It's a little smiley face with a plus sign. It says reactions. You can click on that and then click raise hand, and I'll be able to see that, and we can have some order to our questions here. So feel free to use that function or drop them in the chat box. Any questions you have for any of the team really who are here.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, actually, we've got quite a few of the team online. And before we go to questions, if staff, all the staff who are online, if you could please come off mute and introduce yourself as well as your position, that would be great.
I'll go first while I'm on mute or on unmute. I'm Sabrina. I'm the Associate Director of Development. I feel like you all get lots of emails from me about events and happenings here at NCOBS. So thank you for your patience with me, and so happy to see all of you. And Franklin, we see you. We'll come to you right after staff introductions. So.
Hey, I'm Carrie Myers. I'm the Advancement Director. I've met most of you here, so nice to see you all tonight.
I'm going to jump in quick before my dogs start erupting. My name's Deb Whitmore, and I'm the Director of Program Operations, looking after all our fantastic programs. Great to be here.
And I am Lindsay Ward. I am most recently the new staffing manager at NCOBS, but I've been around in various positions for a while.
Hey, I'm Melissa Atherton. I'm in Charlotte. I'm the director of Charlotte Advancement, and I just got home with all my bruises from the educators course.
Woohoo!
And I think that is everyone. Bill Murray was on, but had to hop off. So I'm sure most of you know him and would have liked to see him. So Franklin, you're on. Your hand is up and you're off mute. Go for it.
Okay, thank you, Sabrina. I simply have a request. Please ask people who have not otherwise activated their video to do so if they would like to. I particularly would like to see John Huey's picture and Rufus Dalton's picture.
Sure. And the button is down in the bottom left-hand corner. There is a little camera that should say start video if you feel so inclined. Rufus.
Or if you're on an iPad, it's on the top of the
Oh,
iPad.
perfect. Thank you.
Make sure you have clothes on if you have your camera on.
Great point, Henry. Thank you. And while we're working on that, we did have a question from Mark Brown, if you are ready.
Yes.
And it's about recruiting more diverse staff. Can you say more about how you are planning to recruit a more diverse staff? What other changes are you looking into to make sure the culture is welcoming?
Sure, thank you. And that's a fabulous question. And it's one actually that after the conference this weekend and talking with a number of people that attended the conference as well as the presenters, that really added to the dialogue that we're having internally. We've got a team of 4 or 5. So we have a new HR director here in NCOBS, Karen Sayre. I heard her about 2 weeks after I started, and she had been serving in the role as a senior consultant for the past 3 months, and then welcoming Lindsay Ward onto the HR team, as well as Kristen Keene. So we have 3 specific resources right now dedicated, along with help with our Hearst initiative, to look at the business development pipeline and where we are going to be doing our recruiting. And so KK, Kristen Keene goes by KK, is very busy right now, specifically working with college outdoors programs and a number of different companies as well to understand with that pipeline where we need to be recruiting. So there's a little bit of R&D work that's going on, and also looking at who should instruct those trainings once we are able to hire a number of new instructors into the pipeline. And Lindsay, I'm going to kick it over to you if you'd like to say a little bit more about that.
I just want to add that this is the role that KK has been like gunning for. She's got some vision for this, and I am really excited to see her and hear her every day talking about all these new things that she's signing up for and these people she's interacting with and reaching out to. So I think that we do have some cool opportunities, and I'm excited that we have recently rebuilt the HR department to a level where I think we are going to have the bandwidth to address that more aggressively than we have in the past few years.
And Mark, I see your comment. Thank you for that resource. And along those lines, you know, this is where we go to our community to understand your resources too, and what your spheres of influence are, specifically in the diversity realm, as well as within your communities. And if there are people that you feel like we should be connecting with or that we should be talking to, please reach out to us and let us know. This is how we broaden our sphere of influence. So would definitely welcome any suggestions or resources.
Thanks, Mark, for that question. And B, there is a question about the Washington, D.C. course, and I'm happy to take that one if I'll read it out and then happy to answer it if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Great. So we did have a group of our DC scholarship students who unfortunately their course had to be canceled over the summer. And the question is about how to get those students back on course. And so we are definitely doing our best, and myself as sort of regional advancement and Kate Coffey, who manages our scholarships, have been talking about this. And we are really looking at how we could potentially get them enrolled in an earlier course, you know, this spring in the mountains. And then if not, how they could be first priority to be enrolled next summer. I don't think it's realistic for them to be enrolled in our Everglades season, unfortunately, due to a lot of the things that we've already talked about around staffing and just enrollment demand and things like that. So we are working on a solution and we hope to have one very soon, but we're also just struggling to find all the answers for enrollment in general. As we've already shared, our demand is very high at the moment. So, but we have them front of mind to get them enrolled. So any other thoughts? Anybody want to add to that? Jim, I see your hand, but I've got a couple of questions ahead of you, so I'll keep moving. There is a question from Michelle about the future of Outward Bound Atlanta. What do you foresee for the Outward Bound Atlanta schools?
Thank you, Michelle. That's a great question. And I would say it's really the $1 million question on the table. So many of you may know that Sanji Jacobs is our incoming board chair. And so in March, we hope to have an in-person board meeting in Atlanta. And many of you know that Author Blank and the Author Blank Foundation has historically supported a lot of the programming that we've successfully delivered in Atlanta. We are now in the process of taking a step back. We've had a number of transitions within the staffing ranks in Atlanta, but we want to be involved with the Atlanta community. We have a number of good partnerships, and historically we've done great work in Atlanta. So moving forward, this is one of the areas where we are taking a step back, and we're talking to a number of people by way of community leaders, business leaders, the Blank Foundation, to understand how we should move forward in Atlanta strategically. What impact and where are we best positioned within Atlanta? And I think once we make that decision, and again, that will be a collective, collaborative decision, then we'll better understand exactly what resources we need to be able to make that happen. As I mentioned previously, we're really looking at Charlotte to be a pilot because we are testing a few things in Charlotte right now. And as we think about that, I think that will inform how we move forward in Atlanta. Carrie, is there anything that you would like to add to that from a funder's perspective?
We can we continue to have great support down there. The Cox Foundation, Georgia Pacific, the Arby's Foundation, as well as the Blaine Foundation have all been consistently supportive in the work that we're doing in Atlanta. And we've got a lot of individual supporters as well that I see right here on this call. So we really do have a robust opportunity to continue our work down there. And it's just, there is definitely this barrier that we had with the pandemic that has caused us to kind of rethink how we're doing things and moving forward. What I'm excited about is that Bees really put some energy on these community-based programs, and it is a very exciting opportunity that the staff are energized to get behind.
Thanks.
And B, I'd like to add on and go just a little bit out of order for the questions for people who are following the chat, because there is a question about what do you see for the Everglades programs? And I think it's interconnected around this, sort of forecasting what's happening. So I don't know if you want to speak specifically to the Everglades while we're on the topic.
I'll speak to it from a strategic balcony level, and then I'll ask Deb to speak to it too from a programmatic level. So we are going into our Everglades season right now, which we're thrilled about. And as we move forward, the Everglades have served a great shoulder season in working with a number of different schools. And we want to continue that work. And we will continue that work. Where we have been struggling specifically at this juncture and point in time is with staffing the Everglades. And so as we move forward, things are starting to look a little bit brighter. I had a conversation with Lindsay just before we got on this call. And so that's really, it's been around our supply and demand curve within the Everglades. But that, as you all know, has been a tremendous impactful area for us during the winter months going into the spring months. And so we will continue to grow that program, calibrated in how we're rolling out programs with the pandemic. And again, it just goes to that supply demand, because there is a great deal of demand for the Everglades, and it's the ability to serve that demand. Deb, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that?
Yeah. Yeah, I just wish that the season could be longer and it wasn't like mired by bugs and torrential rains. But yeah, I mean, we've put a lot of effort into Everglades. The island is looking the best it ever has. We're trying to get the grass to grow back after all the construction. And there's just an absolute loyalty of staff who want to work in Everglades. And, it would be great if the season could be longer and we had more propensity to get people in the field down there, because we do have many new clients that are wanting to be in the Everglades. And it's just a matter of how to create that space. So Trish Heights is our returning program director. I can't even remember how many years at this point that she's been the captain of the ship down there, but she's just a pivotal force for us in having her in Everglades, and we're set up in a really strong way for the upcoming season.
Thanks, Deb. And Pat, and Rosa and I will be down there with Sabrina this weekend. We're all going to the base camp and really, really looking forward to that. So we'll be spending some time out there, and that will be my first time going down to that base camp. So I'm quite excited to do that.
Very excited for our Florida trip. Jim, I still see you, but there was one more question ahead of you. Sorry, keep hanging on. There is a question from Coleman about how are the virtual programs going and will they be part of the long-term plan?
They will definitely be a part of the long-term plan. And Deb, I'm going to ask you to speak to that as well.
Yeah, I mean, Coleman, I think we've had such great success with them in this COVID time period. But they've also demonstrated that with everybody's time becoming so valuable, it will have a place in our community-based programs as either a front loader to a wilderness course or a bookend to a wilderness course. So with virtual being in that community-based program umbrella under Sarah Goldman, and she's been the leader that has really helped propel virtual. We just think that it's going to have a place for all our program types. And it's just allowed us to reach people on many, many continents in this year. So it's just been fantastic, just the idea of who we can reach when we don't have to bring them to a wilderness base camp. So we're really excited for virtual to keep going.
Great. Thanks, Deb.
All right, Jim, I think it's your turn.
Fantastic. Thank you. Hi, B.
Hey, Jim.
Nice to see you again.
You too.
So I'm glad that the school has moved to the vaccine mandate for staff and is moving in the direction, it sounds like, for open enrollment students. Could you talk a little bit more fully about maybe what I didn't understand you to say about the group enrollment types of programs? It would seem to me, just as a political statement, if we as a school can tell everyone that's participating has to be mandated, everybody that participates is going to feel safer. But if we don't have that with the group enrollment programs, that seems to defeat the purpose to some degree. But could you discuss that a little bit more fully?
I will. I'll address it, and then I'll also ask Deb to address it as well. So as we're looking at our community programs, it's a challenging discussion, primarily because of the students, the schools that we're working with. And as you know, a lot of our students come from through schools, meaning that could be from pre-K all the way through 12, or that could be through K all the way through 12. And a lot of schools are not mandating vaccinations. And we also work with a number of diverse populations within our different contract, our GEP, what we call our GEP courses. And so that is a decision-making criteria as we look across the board at all of our legacy clients and the people that we've worked with for years. And this is the conversation that is happening at the national level right now. And so as we evaluate this for the North Carolina Outward Bound School, I've been in conversation with FOBS, who is looking at the same policy, which is requiring it for open enrollment, but not requiring it for their contract courses. Cobb's, Colorado Outward Bound School, same story. And so this is a conversation that's come up quite a bit too with California Outward Bound School, and specifically through the lens of equity in how many people will we be ruling out who don't have access to vaccinations, who aren't able to be served through Outward Bound and have the impact of an Outward Bound course. And so within those conversations, the things that have come up, because we've got very stringent COVID protocols in place, and that is what has allowed us basically to safely deliver courses throughout the summer. So those 800 students that were served over the course of the summer, there was a lot of COVID testing that happened pre-course, first day of course, what's the course, depending on the length of the course, depending on what day the COVID testing would happen. So it's a quite a complex decision-making criteria, taking all of these different factors into consideration as we think about how to move forward. And so, Deb, is there anything that you would like to add to that from the group dynamic?
Yeah, no, I think you've answered it, B, because all our programs are just different. And when we think about some of our one-day programs that last for 4 hours, it's really just taking all of those into account. And so it is a further conversation of who won't we be able to serve if we just do the total mandate across. We love the simplicity of that, straight across the board, clear cut. But I think it's got some repercussions for that we just need to weigh up.
And I'll keep you apprised of that moving forward. These conversations are happening right now on the national level. the conversation is truly around consistency.
Thanks, Jen. I am not seeing any more questions in the chat, but we'll give it just a minute longer. Oh, Bob, I see a hand up. Feel free to unmute yourself and.
There we are. Yeah, I thought that was a great answer, B. I think risk assessment is something we want all our students to go through, and it'll be a real life experience. But my question for you is, we haven't had a chance to talk, but I'd like to find out how you feel your Hong Kong experience has helped you with your Outward Bound job here, and sense of how you got to go through a crazy experience there and what you might see happening here and how you might interpret your management of it.
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you so much for asking that, because I've actually been talking about that quite a bit over the course of the weekend at the conference. And it's an interesting time to be living in Hong Kong, as you all know, and I'm sure you saw it on the news day in and day out. And as we know, the media often portrays a different story than what is happening on the ground. And once the protests started, I started getting a number of different calls and texts and emails of, when are you coming home? When are you coming home? Are you safe? Or is tear gas, being blasted across your front door? And the reality is that it wasn't. Outward Bound Hong Kong is not located on Hong Kong Island. It's located in the small little sleeping fishing village of Sai Kung, which is in New Territories. So as the crow flies, I was probably about 30 miles from where the protest, 30 minutes, actually 11 miles from where the protests were happening. So unless I chose to go into city center, I didn't see the protest on a daily basis. But I did go into the city a lot during the protest. So I did see a number of the protests. In thinking about how it is helped me and positioned me well for this position. I'm going to take a step back to working at Hong Kong University. I taught in a master's program at Hong Kong University, master's in nonprofit management. And I also worked at an international school. And the international school, we had 40 different nationalities at the school. And at Hong Kong University, I had many students, who were protesting, and universities were somewhat of a scary place to be during that time. And suffice it to say, and I have said this, in that there's racism everywhere, globally, and diversity exists everywhere. And being able to come together with a shared vision around how we are moving forward in an inclusive manner within our school. And the reality is that here at Outward Bound, we have been in the DEI business since the very beginning. And I remember back to being a field instructor in the 90s. And all of the training that I received as an instructor at that time of how to work with adversity, how to work with people from different generations and different ages, and understanding that we all look through different lenses. And that is, I think, the main premise and tenet of how I approach this work personally, but that also how we're working with the staff to approach this work. Because again, our mission is about challenge and discovery and adventure and experiential education. And we are so well suited to work with many, many different populations, and have been doing this work for a very, very long time. So I think, if anything, my experience in Hong Kong only deepened that, because I would wake up every single morning and I would see Hong Kong Chinese people, mainland Chinese people, British people, people from Australia, New Zealand, you name it, anywhere on the globe, out in front of my doorstep kayaking or going on sailing programs or going on backpacking programs. And so it was really nice to be in that global mix and see the tenets and the mission of Outward Bound being delivered and embraced day in and day out.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, B. And Dan, I see your question about what ideas are brewing for engaging alumni in the years ahead. And B, I don't know if you have anything specific you want to say, but I think Carrie and I can probably take this one if that's helpful.
Yeah, please do.
Great. So we actually just had a really wonderful call with some of our former staff alumni. Many of you were on it, and thanks to B for helping host that event. And so we have spent some time with our former staff alumni and really getting to know them, and me at least getting to know them more. And we have lots of hopes for what our alumni engagement will look like in the future. And I think we're really just trying to figure out how to balance that with getting through the end of this pandemic, hopefully. Carrie, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just definitely riffing off what Sabrina just said there. Exactly that. Like a lot of our staff alumni have actually really helped support our efforts to build out of the pandemic as we're building back our staff. And Lindsay may even share, we've had a couple of staff come out of literally the woodwork in terms of being able to help instruct here on future courses that maybe haven't instructed in a while, but still have kept up those skills. And that's been incredibly valuable. So how we've built that connectivity around staff alumni in the past has really helped us to shape where we're going here in the future. And then in terms of other alumni efforts in the future, we still are committed to those. We've struggled to have in-person events here this fall and had to cancel a few. And we're going to continue to remain COVID safe around that. But knowing that it is in our mind to start connecting in a broader way around alumni efforts in the future. And that's something that we'll have here in our long-term plans around it. One thing we do have, and Sabrina's going to drop the link here, and some folks might be interested, but we're, along with the thoughts of what we need to build back up here, is we're doing a service project weekend, and we're doing a service weekend at Table Rock on November 12th through the 14th. And if that's something that you might be interested in, that you're in the area, one of the things we do want to do is have a focus around service weekends here at base camps. And, if Pat Jordan's still on here, maybe he'd want to come up. We just brought that up here recently, but that's something that we might, that we're trying to build back into, and maybe do one at Everglades City, at Cedar Rock. We've got to really focus on our core and the things that's going to build us back stronger. And this right here is going to be a great opportunity. So if you're around and would like to join, we would love to see you there.
Thanks, Carrie. And I am not seeing any more questions, and we are coming up on 6:30, so I want to be conscious of everyone's time, but last call sort of for questions. Great. B, any parting thoughts if you want to?
Again, I just want to thank you all for the warm welcome to NCOPS. It's fabulous to be here, and I hope to meet all of you at some point in time in person. And if you have anything that you'd like to chat about, I would love to speak to you. So don't hesitate to reach out either via email or by phone. And again, just want to thank you for your incredible support as we've continued to navigate these really challenging times. And I'm excited about the future and what we're stepping into. And so together, we are all going to rise, and I'm excited about that. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, B. Thank you all again for being here. We will do this again soon. Look for new dates and more events coming up. So thanks again. Have a good night.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.